Next on MLR Weekly, Roux Malan of New England's Free Jacks and Namibia after his injury at the Rugby World Cup. Rugby Morning's John Fitzpatrick with Major League Rugby headlines, rumors, and moves. Plus, Bryan of America's Rugby News analyzes the San Diego Legion and offers Rugby World Cup insight. Rugby Wrap-Up's MLR Weekly brought to you by Sheehy Auto Stores. It's easy at Sheehy. The Pig and Whistle, New York City, the world's best rugby pub. And Lean and Limber, stretching your way to a healthier lifestyle. City, welcome to the program. We got a whole bunch of stuff going on and we are cracking up off camera, but we have a solid show with Roux Malan, the New England Free Jack star who happens to be playing with Namibia, or was, and you may have seen the clip, but he's good, he's healthy, he's on the show. We're going to talk to him. We're also going to talk to Bryan of America's Rugby News about MLR stuff, but before we do that, we have our Major League Rugby recurring segment with John Fitzpatrick of Rugby Morning, Rugby Morning's coffee break. John, what the fizzle are you doing?
Cheers, mate. Sorry, Matt. I was just finishing up my Zoom interview with Rugby Australia and their vacant head coaching position.
Of course. Not Japan?
Yeah, it sounds like they already got their guy.
Beautiful. What do you got for us?
Speaking of beautiful, how's it always sunny in New York City? Matt, we've got some major news in Major League Rugby. Let's start in Houston with the Houston SaberCats. They have acquired in a trade from Rugby ATL and the LA whatchamacallits, Johan Momsen and Justin Bassan, just adding to that South African beef in Houston. Matt, what do you make of that trade?
First of all, they're great players, but my attention span, which is fleeting at best, drifted right to the naming of the LA whatchamacallits, and I think they ought to be the LA Extras. You know, the marketing blitz, you got extras that everybody knows, they keep seeing in different movies and TV shows, or extras that became superstars, right? Just work with me. LA Extras, and they're following the main character, the Giltini, or Giltinis. See what I'm doing? See, you know, LA Extras. Think about it, everybody out there. Next!
Well, isn't everyone on strike in Hollywood? Hey, the San Diego Legion have jumped onto that LA whatchamacallits, LA Extras fire sale. They've acquired the rights to Billy Haley. What do you think of that, man?
He's another good player, and maybe playing in a crowded back line or back row, and maybe another trade looming. Next!
But wait, there's more. The Dallas Jackals are jumping in on that fire sale. They've acquired the rights to Damian Torres. Matt, what are the LA Extras doing there?
Well, the ownership group is still a little bit in flux in terms of ink drying, but I think that they'll have a wave of moves once the move is officially declared. Next!
Hey, let's jump on up to the Toronto Arrows. They have re-signed Canadian international hooker Jack McRogers. I think we're going to see a really improved Toronto Arrows sides in 2024.
McRogers is a great, steady player. He's also a scratch golfer, and he's not to be confused with Rogers McJack. Next!
Hey, let's move on up or down to Old Glory, D.C., new home venue. They have re-signed flanker Corey Daniel. You may remember last year Corey Daniel missed most of the season with an injury, but he's back. He led MLR in tackles in the 2022 MLR season.
Yeah, one of those players that you don't miss until he's gone, really. You know, it's like he's all over the pitch. He's a former wrestler. He's an all-around athlete who's made the transition into rugby exponentially quickly. And check those adverbs. But he is excellent and a good player, and what an addition he's going to make coming back. So good to see him healthy. And his brother is also playing. Next!
Hey, Matt, last thing here, but did you hear the news that Will Hooley is coming back to MLR?
I did not hear that news, but I would say he's coming back in the broadcast booth.
Well, close. He's officially signed. He's accepted a job with Major League Rugby to be their technical director. So he is back in MLR.
Wow, that's good news. He is far too good looking to be doing some like technical job. He's got to be like doing toothpaste commercials for the MLR. That's my thing. Next!
Matt, that is all I got. I'm excited to see the credits for the LA Extras when that premiere happens.
And think about the other part of it and the marketing part about it. You have a kid standing on the corner saying, extras, extras, and giving out LA Extras tickets instead of a newspaper, which nobody knows what it is anyway. And on that note, we are through with Mr. John Fitzpatrick of Rugby Morning. Thank you once again, John. And we'll be back with Roux Malan. And you might recognize him from playing with Namibia against New Zealand and an injury. But he's good. He's waiting. And then after that, we'll have Bryan Ray of America's Rugby News. Don't go away.
Need a great price on a new vehicle? Sheehy makes it easy. Easy Price shows you our lowest prices on the Mid-Atlantic's largest selection. Find your best price online or at any of our 31 dealerships.
It's easy at Sheehy. Sheehy.com.
You need your cleats? You need them tomorrow? If you order today by 3 p.m. New York time or noon LA time, they can have them to you tomorrow. Young, old, male, female, if you're playing on turf, if you're playing on grass, if you're playing in the rain, you're playing in the heat, they've got you covered. RugbyNow.com. Go there now. All right, we are back, and we have the pleasure of welcoming in Roux Malan, the New England Free Jack star, playing with Namibia in the Rugby World Cup. Roux, welcome to MLR Weekly.
Thanks, Matt. Pleasure to be on here, man.
You were injured against New Zealand. We're going to get to that in a minute, but let's give a little background. You are, sir, one of the backline members, and a damn good one, of the champion New England Free Jacks, coming off a glorious Major League Rugby finals win over San Diego, and that led to you being invited back to Team Namibia for the Rugby World Cup. First of all, congratulations on a great Major League Rugby season.
Thank you. It was an awesome season indeed. Loved every minute of it.
Yeah, and you got a few fellow Namibians on your roster that went to the Rugby World Cup with you. So how cool was that?
It's absolutely awesome spending some quality time with Via and having him on our team. He's an integral part of our team, and sharing a field on the world stage with him is even more special.
But you've also got other fellow Namibians that were on Major League Rugby teams on that Namibian roster. Boyson, Lubser, right?
Of course. Yeah, it's always special playing against those boys, obviously sharing, playing in different teams with them and against. It's super special. Damien Stevens, the scrum half, actually plays for NOLA. We come from the same high school, so We've come a long way, and it's super special. Sharing the field with him and playing against him. It's always a good laugh catching up with him.
That's cool. So for the folks at home that don't know, where is Namibia?
Namibia is the bordering country north of South Africa. A small country, about 2.5 million people. Huge country, but not many members in the country. Truly beautiful country as well. The people of Namibia are truly special and very kind and loving people. So maybe very deserty and beautiful landscapes. Yeah.
All right. And what was your hometown?
I was born in Windhoek, but when I was 2 years old, I actually moved to South Africa. Basically grew up in Paarl. Yeah. I've still got all my dad's family in Namibia though. So we used to go up for summer holidays and loved it that side. You qualified, if you chose to, for the Springboks. So when you were growing up, you had to be rooting for the Springboks or wanting to play for the Springboks. I mean, my heart lies on both sides of the border. And like I said, all my dad's family is still in Namibia. So a huge part of me is that side. But a huge part of me is this side, having all my friends and family in South Africa. So, yeah.
How did you start playing rugby and how old were you?
Ever since I can remember, must have been 4 years old. I mean, it's such a cultural Afrikaans thing in South Africa. So, it's just always what everyone's been doing. It's sort of like hockey up north in America or like football in a sense. So ever since I can remember, all my friends have been doing it. That's all we've always wanted to do. So, yeah. At
what point did the focus shift to saying, okay, let me shoot for Namibia's national team?
You know, I always had it in the back of my head. And when I started, I was sort of always an underdog. I always knew I wanted to do rugby for a living, but I never knew that it was going to happen. And then basically in high school, I had one good game and I got a contract. And ever since then, it's been a thought of mine to obviously play the highest level of rugby that I possibly can. And once stuff didn't work out necessarily the way I wanted to in South Africa, it was always a dream playing for the Springboks, but I never made any provincial setups, provincial teams or anything. I was always sort of not in the scope of South African rugby. So it was always a dream, but not a very realistic one. And I think once I made the decision to move to America, my mindset started shifting to, well, first getting to a starting position for the Free Jacks. And then everything sort of happened by itself. I mean, I performed quite well. Scott Mather came into contact with Alistair Coetzee, and ever since then, it's obviously been awesome being part of the Namibian setup and such a big privilege as well.
So that's a great story. That's a great Major League Rugby story, because Major League Rugby got you the opportunity to play for Namibia.
100%. 100%. I'm so thankful for the league and grateful for it. It's an awesome league to be playing, and such a fun league as well. I love my rugby and playing it in the States.
Well, you're one hell of a rugby player, and that brings us to present day. And you know, we have a rather macabre sense of humor here in rugby, right? And yours truly has been in your situation before, because as a player, I was too small, didn't pass, and never kicked. So I just got destroyed on the pitch, right? So walk us through, pun intended, the injury.
So I was actually running, and it's actually funny. The previous week I played in plastic studs, and obviously in the MLR we don't play on grass very often. So I was playing in plastic studs, and I slipped the whole game against Italy. So I said, okay, cool. Well, let me play with multi-studs. Anyways, we were chasing a box kick, and I was chasing hard on the inside. And as Damien McKenzie caught the ball to make the pass to Beauden Barrett, I was almost at 80% sprint. And I guess my left leg slipped underneath me, and that made my right foot get stuck into the ground. But I was very close to Beauden. So as he caught it and made contact, all my force was going forward, and my foot being stuck in the ground, making contact with him, my upper body going back, it just got stuck in a very weird position.
No. So as an American, I have two things that I want to take out of that. Number one, we're going to sue Beauden Barrett, right? We're going to go right. And we'll just sue all the Barretts, right? Every Barrett, because there's a lot of them, right?
I'm sure we'll get a fortune,
And then number two, did you know immediately?
Sort of. I felt it all go, and I knew it wasn't great. Once I touched my ankle trying to put it back into place,
never a good sign. It
literally didn't want to move. So then in reality started kicking in. Everything went into slow-mo, and I was still in a bit of shock, but I think 2-3 minutes from that, emotion just took over, and I knew this is quite serious and quite scary.
Yeah, and so soon into that match, and against the vaunted All Blacks.
Of course.
But man, what an opportunity, though. I mean, I'm looking at it, and it's tough for you because you're in the fog of war. But what an experience, even as short as it was, and the result. What just tremendous accomplishment in such a short time, really. In you being over here playing in Major League Rugby, and then facing the All Blacks, who you've watched all your life, in the World Cup against those players.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I grew up watching half that team play, so obviously idolizing them, and they're obviously one of the most winniest teams in the history of sports. So just such a major privilege and such a cool experience. I think being at a World Cup, I still think it hasn't completely sunk in yet, but absolutely awesome to measure myself against the world's best. I mean, that's what every rugby player want to do, and just a huge privilege.
So where did you have the surgery and when?
World Rugby was absolutely immense. obviously the medical care was great, and I actually got the operation in Toulouse, nearby hospital, not even 3 hours after the injury. I wasn't even I wasn't even put under. I literally got local anesthetic.
Seriously?
I was awake during the procedure. It was an hour long and it was complete. So yeah, it went really well. It was honestly the medical team at the hospital was absolutely incredible. Such nice people and genuinely cared, and I really appreciate for it. It makes the whole process a lot easier.
And what was the actual injury?
I broke my fibula at the top, which apparently they didn't want to get surgery on or they didn't want to fix because it's very close to some nerve. And then my whole synosmosis tore completely, all the ligaments and everything. So yeah, they basically put titanium wire through that, and that's where they operated.
And are you keeping the hardware in there, or are they going to take it out?
It depends. In 3 months' time, we'll see what happens. Because some players struggle with it, some not. So we'll just reassess. Yeah.
If you do get it taken out, request the hardware, and maybe you sell 100%. It on eBay. I mean, Jack's Rangers 100%. Will bid like $400 for that.
100%. Some good memorabilia. I agree.
Did they give you any painkillers?
Yeah, this injury has been my most painful injury post-surgery, for sure. And even during injury, that was the most pain I've experienced, having a rugby injury. But yeah, I've been on meds ever since. The leg's been in a lot of pain. So
are you hallucinating and seeing a thing like Woodgie in your images?
I'm not hallucinating because I think it's very real that he's here with me in spirit.
I don't know. And again, I keep beating this dead horse, but I think Mags is Woodgie, and you never see them in the same place at the same time. That's all I'm going to say.
That's very true. I've never seen them in the same room. No wonder Woodgie isn't in our post-match locker room, eh?
What's the timetable for a return?
4 to 6 months. So I think I'll probably stay off the foot. Don't put any pressure on it for about 8 to 12 weeks, and then I'll probably gradually start running and everything. So it's looking more like 6 months, which hopefully puts me in time to be ready by the beginning of the MLR season. So that's great. Truly fabulous. Yeah.
LaRoux, nothing but the best wishes, and thank you for coming on.
Awesome. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, LaRoux. We'll be right back with Bryan Ray of America's Rugby News after this.
If you're in New York City and want to watch some great rugby, have some great food, and some great times, go to the world's best rugby pub, the Pig and Whistle on West 36th Street.
This is the Rugby Odds, where an unlikely pundit panel of a wordsmith, a WWE legend, a rugby star, and a supermodel scour the globe, seeking best bets and bad behavior. Are you not entertained? And we are back with Mr. Bryan Ray of America's Rugby News. Always great to see you, Bryan. How are you?
Doing all right here in sunny San Diego. Can't really complain.
On the docket today, topics on the docket today are San Diego and what they have done and what they need to do, maybe to get back into that final and actually win it. And also, we'll take a little peek at the Rugby World Cup.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's been an interesting tournament. By the way, I guess starting off, it's great to hear from Roux Malan saying he's, on the road to recovery. They got him into surgery so quickly. So, I mean, it sounds like he's ambitious to make the start of the MLR season. I mean, it looks like his path to returning is shorter than maybe some of us anticipated. So that is great to hear. Also got to shout out Manuel Ardao for setting the World Cup record for most turnovers in a single match against Italy. What a superb match. And hey, hate to say I told you so, Miami fans, but you guys have a cracker of a flanker coming to you. So really looking forward to see him get about 1,000 steals in the MLR season. The tournament's all, I mean, what a game, Ireland versus South Africa felt like a knockout match. That was a spectacular match. I mean, there you had the two kind of, you take your pick. You got the Wales-Fiji match earlier, which was just a great match running rugby. This one a little bit more like, playoff hockey kind of felt, just smashy, but so much drama. It was an entertaining match. We're starting to inch towards that knockout stage, so it's going to feel pretty real pretty soon, but a few good games going on. So, I'm hearing some complaints that things aren't all rosy on the ground, but I hear that some guy from New York is headed over to have a first-hand look at how things are going over there.
Well, allegedly. Before we get to that, I just want to ask you a question. Do you know any on-air pundits that you might know that said that Ireland was going to beat South Africa and that South Africa's Achilles heel was their goal kicking? Anyone? Anyone? Bueller? Is this thing on? And I am going to try to get to France, but on the Rugby Wrap-Up overseas budget, yours truly will be flying on standby, which means I only get on a plane if there's a seat, and my standby buddy pass is ranked as opposed to the other people. And you get these from employees and their seniority might be over yours. So it's like a game show, and they should have like a clock because, nope, you're staying the night in the airport, or you get there. And then the same thing coming back. And the place that I'm staying in, it's not the greatest. But hey, kids, if you want to be a rugby pundit, you can.
I'd like to help you out and maybe send a dog sled down but I hear they have trouble getting over the water, so that plane is kind of, out of the picture at the moment.
I don't want to take you away from your Igloo Repair podcast. I don't want you to waste any time. Okay, so I appreciate that. But anyway, we digress. Let's talk more rugby.
I was really rooting for, Uruguay to sneak that third spot. Wouldn't that have been interesting if they had somehow pulled off that win and got the automatic qualification for an American spot? Even without if they expand the World Cup, there is talk that they're going to finally bump it up to 24 teams in 2027. Originally, it's 2031 now.
Why do you want to bump it up to 24 teams?
I think it's a no-brainer. I think it's absolutely ludicrous that 2023 was in 24 teams. Look, at people arguing about blowout scores or whatever. Who cares? That is so secondary. When you look at the exposure that the lower teams get coming to the World Cup, it pales in comparison to anything else they're going to do. So the benefits to that far outweigh some punter in London about an 80 to nothing score. Who cares? Get out of here. I'm tired of that. It's totally meaningless. No, World Cup exposure is absolutely massive for any developing team. They got to play better opposition at some point. And the bottom line is they're in the tournament. Not every game is going to be 96 to nothing or whatever. If that's the worst score that we see and we see it once, whatever. I really do not care. Japan lost, 145 to something in 1995, and now they're a competitive side. Look, you've got to start somewhere. By far, the most important thing is exposure. I mean, honestly, score lines are so far secondary to me for that kind of consideration. It's not even funny.
All right. Well, we don't have any more time for this, and we've eaten into our MLR segment about fixing teams and what they need. What about San Diego? They just came up short against the champion New England Free Jacks, and we had Roux Malan on earlier of the Free Jacks. What does San Diego do, or what have they done?
Well, they got to make an interesting decision. I mean, we saw how disappointed they were. An older side last year. They have been the last couple of years, and they got also close, as close as it gets to winning a title, and they've done that a couple times now. But they got to look at their roster. A lot of guys, well beyond that 30 point, up in the mid 30s. Some of them, I mean, even some above that. I know a lot of them, Nanu, for example, said, hey, maybe, he's over 40. And he's saying, well, I want to come back for one more season to see if we can get it. But some guys, Will Hooley retired at the end of the season. That's a big loss for them. He's only 29. Almost one of the younger guys in that lineup, which is crazy.
Yeah, but as far as male models go, he's a little bit older on that treadmill. So he's got to get out there because he's so freaking good looking. He's got to get out there and start modeling.
Yeah, now he's got to do some modeling for MLR now that he's an official MLR employee. So that's great for them. But, that's a big loss for them. Certainly, he's such a good tactical kicker. But my point is they got to decide, do they want to carry on? Do they want to take the same roster forward and bring all these older guys? Because, it seems, only a year, you can say that. But, as we age, things don't get easier. It gets a little harder to get out of bed every morning. So do they want to gamble with bringing back Blair Cowan and Isaac Ross, et cetera, and all these guys? Or are they going to turn the page a little and bring in some fresh blood? So I think there's got to be some decisions there. I don't know what that decision is. We've already seen them bring in a couple players just recently. Danny Christensen, they just brought him in. Vili Halu, now he's a bit younger, domestic player. So I think that's a good pickup for them. But I'm interested to see the strategy that they take, and that kind of dictates what they need. Because if they're bringing back all these veteran guys, then maybe they don't need as many parts, and maybe it's just a matter of plugging it in here and there with your Halus and whoever they bring in.
Well, Isaac Ross said to me after the loss he wanted to come back, and Ma'ananu, he said he definitely wants to come back, and he was staring death at me. When I was trying to talk to him, not staring death. He was just very intense, and it still affected him, that loss. And I was like, wow, this is why this guy is so good at what he does. And a couple of weeks ago, we had Ryan Patterson, the owner, who is also the chairman of the board of directors for Major League Rugby, on. And they're doing a lot in the community. They're doing a lot of stuff, a lot of outreach, trying to get things going, and I get the feeling that they're going to try to load up to win next year. That's what they want to do. They want to get back to that final, and they want to win that Shield.
If this is what they want to do, they want to push, they want to keep the core of that side together and keep that older, group together. That's fine. These guys want to come back and win. So I think that's fine. And certainly as an organization, you want to be competing each and every year. And sort of the coaching staff, Danny Lee, Alex Corbsero, et cetera, they all want to win too. So I'm okay with that. But I think they've got to start kind of preparing for that next generation of players coming underneath, because that, if they go another year, beyond that, they're definitely going to have to start replacing some of these guys. So, they picked up a few young guys. And they had this young guy, Amiatu Tanoe, who was coming in with the USA Hawks, a loose forward who was quite high. I think he was the youngest player ever signed to an MLR contract. They've got a couple of these younger guys coming back. So it's time to start giving them some game time, putting them into situations and testing them and starting to prepare. Obviously you're not going to be able to do that every game because, every game counts in MLR, but get them some minutes, 15, 20 minutes at the end of the game and start moving that. So that's what I think they should start to do this year is be competitive, but keep in mind that they have to move on at some point, and it's time to start just, fitting these guys in where they can.
Bryan, before we let you go, any final thoughts? No. All right. On that note, I want to thank Mr. Bryan Ray of America's Rugby News, Mr. John Fitzpatrick of Rugby Morning, Mr. Roux Malan of the New England Free Jacks, and thank you for tuning in. Please check out our other shows, including the critically acclaimed The Rugby Odds, College Rugby Wrap-Up. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Sign up for our weekly newsletter. Please tell your mates about us, and please join our American Red Cross Blood Donor Team.